You can see the difference in how we measure those examples that I gave you right there. It is night and day. Basically, it all boils down to how you see happiness. Is happiness something far off in the future that you hope to experience maybe someday, but it's just always out of reach? Or is happiness something that you can experience today, right now, as you celebrate the wins that you've already realized? Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Thank you so much for being here for episode number 17 of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Man, it just feels like yesterday that I dropped episodes 1, 2, and 3. For those of you that have been here with me from the very beginning, thank you so much. I am glad that you are investing in your productivity. I'm glad that you are investing in you. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know I say it every episode, my goal is for you to dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I believe with all my heart that amazing things will happen to you and through you when you do that, when you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And so that's what this show is all about. I'm just, again, so grateful that you are here. If you have not subscribed, maybe you're new, maybe this is the first time you're checking it out. Thank you. Again, we're glad that you are here as well. But just want to let you know, you can find the show anywhere you like listening to podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube. So if you want to watch instead of just listen, again, that is on YouTube. But make sure wherever you are watching the show, listening to the show, that you subscribe, you follow, so you don't miss a single episode. Today is another conversation about mindset. And you may be asking, why do I talk so much about mindset and not just productivity strategies? Well, let's be honest. I'm not the first person to talk about planning your week or the benefits of time blocking. You probably know most of this stuff already. Now, yes, I put my own flavor on it, right? I look at it through the lens of holistic productivity, but you don't need someone telling you that you will be more productive if you put your phone down and stop doom scrolling. Okay? I don't need to have a whole episode on that. What we do need, all of us, and I'll raise my hand on this as well, what we do need is to shift our mindset so that we can think about productivity and goals and accomplishing things that are meaningful to us from a new perspective. Because again, we know all the old ways, we know all the existing things that we're supposed to do. But with that new perspective, that mindset shift, now we can start to do the things that we already know that we should be doing because we're thinking about them differently. So that's why I talk a lot about mindset. And today I want to talk about how we measure success. Now, this comes from one of my favorite books. I'm going to hold it up. If you are on YouTube, you will see it. This is The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Now, Sullivan is the founder and CEO of Strategic Coach. That's a coaching for entrepreneurs. And Dr. Benjamin Hardy is an organizational psychologist. They have written several books together. I love all of them. This one may be my favorite. And the whole premise of the book is how we measure our progress matters. They outline in the book two very diametrical ways that we can measure success or progress. And they call those the gap and the gain. Now, when we measure the gap, that's the idea that we're measuring our progress against some future goal or some ideal. If we want to earn 100,000 followers on social media, but we only have 50,000 followers, we would measure that 50,000 and we would say that we're halfway there. Now, this is kind of the default. We set a goal and we go after it. I want to earn $1 million in revenue, or I want to receive that doctorate degree that I've been working on, or I want to visit every single continent in the world. Gap thinking puts happiness or fulfillment or satisfaction somewhere in the future, something that we have to keep striving for and keep trying to achieve. Measuring the gain is the exact opposite of measuring the gap. It's the idea that we measure our progress by how far we've come, not how far we have left to go. I use the example of having 100,000 social media followers, and right now we're only at 50,000. So using the gap to measure our progress, we would say, well, we're only 50% there. We have 50,000 followers still to go. Measuring the gain says, well, you know what? We started at 2,000 followers on social media, and now we have 50,000. That's 25x growth, right? Very different ways of looking at that. We're only 50% there, or we've had 25x growth from where we were when we started. Now, Sullivan and Hardy call measuring the gain measuring backwards, because we're measuring back to where we started. So maybe you haven't reached that $1 million in revenue, but you have reached 10x growth in your revenue every single year for the last 5 years. That's amazing. Maybe you're still working on that PhD, but you have 2 masters already, and you were the first person in your family to even graduate from college. You still have a couple of continents to check off, but you have toured extensively in 43 countries around the world. You can see. Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by Efficient.app. Big shout out to Alex and Andra from Efficient.app for sponsoring the Wholistic Productivity Podcast from the very beginning. We love that. When you are looking for new software, Efficient.app is the place to go. They have already done all the research for you, which saves you the headache of doing a trial of every single app you want to look at. They offer hundreds of product reviews and comparison videos that are informative and fun to watch. Want to hear how Motion stacks up against Monday.com or Asana or ClickUp? They have a review for that. Here's what I love. They promise no BS software reviews. They tell you exactly what they love and what they don't love. And best of all, they have negotiated special deals, discounts, or even extended trial periods for a bunch of different products. If you're going to look for software, do yourself a favor and let Efficient.app do the work for you. Click on the link in the show notes. That's the best way to get there, because you'll let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring the Holistic Productivity Podcast as well. Check them out, Efficient.app. The link in the show notes. You won't regret it. The difference in how we measure those examples that I gave you right there, it is night and day. Basically, it all boils down to how you see happiness. Is happiness something far off in the future that you hope to experience maybe someday, but it's just always out of reach? Or is happiness something that you can experience today, right now, as you celebrate the wins that you've already realized? The book starts off in the introduction talking about Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence back in 1776, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We've heard this all our life, right? We know this line. If you're from America, or if you've been to America, probably studied American history, you understand that line. But talk about a mind shift. It was kind of mind blowing for me when I read them talk about this, because Jefferson framed happiness as unattainable and idealized its pursuit right up there with life and liberty. I mean, subconsciously, we've all been programmed to think this way. And I'm not saying it's all Jefferson's fault, but this is just the world that we live in. I remember growing up as a kid, I would keep thinking about my birthdays, and oh man, when I turn 10, that's going to be amazing. Or when I become a teenager at 13, right? Or 16, because now I can get my driver's license, or 18 or 21, whatever that birthday was, that milestone birthday, I was always looking to that. I wasn't celebrating turning 9 or 11 or 15 or 20, right? I was always looking towards one of these quote unquote milestone birthdays. And now at my age, we're not really looking for those big birthdays anymore. Well, you're looking for every birthday because it beats the alternative. But you know what I mean? There's no real milestone birthdays after you get past a certain point. Maybe it's maybe you look at happiness as when I get that promotion, or when I finally meet the right guy or the right girl. When we are in the gap, happiness is always dependent on something else happening. Every time you're in the gap, you measure yourself against an ideal. And the emotions that go along with that are failure, frustration, disappointment, low self-esteem, guilt, depression. The gap is a treadmill. Lots of effort, but you never really go anywhere because you're never really reaching that ideal. On the other side of the coin, when you are in the gain, when you measure backwards against where you have been, now the emotions of being in the gain are success, satisfaction, confidence, high self-esteem, enjoyment, optimism. Being in the gain is liberating. And I think one of the reasons why I love this book so much is it is just perfectly aligned with the idea of holistic productivity. The gap illustrates perfectly the toxic aspects of productivity that I am done with. This hustle culture that tells us that we need to do more. And the problem with the ideal is that it's impossible to reach because it keeps moving. For our grandparents or maybe our parents, the American dream used to be that you would get married, you'd buy a house, you'd have 2.5 kids, and you'd retire at the same company that you started off with. And after 40 years, they'd give you a gold watch, right? Now, in addition to the spouse, the house, the kids, we need to have a boat. We need to drive the latest electric vehicle. There's a vacation house that we're wanting to get, and a travel budget, and it just goes on and on and on. And I'm not saying that those things are bad, but when you're always trying to reach an ideal, you will come up short. I remember growing up, imagining earning $1 million. I mean, back then, $1 million was rich, right? Like it was really rich. Now, you can have $1 million in assets just because you own a home in a certain part of the country. It's not really rich. You just own a home. And today, if you don't have at least $1 million in investments, well, man, your future probably is in jeopardy, right? That's the way some of us in our 50s feel. Millionaires growing up were few and far between. But now today, where I live here in the Washington, D.C. region, we went from 11 billionaires in the region in 2024 to 28 at the beginning of 2025. 28 billionaires living just in the DC area alone. That goal of becoming a millionaire, that is an ideal that has shifted, that has changed. The ideal is always changing, and it's not something that you want to link your happiness to. You want to link your happiness to what's happening in your life today. A couple months ago, maybe 6 months or a year ago, my kids, I have two boys. They are both adults. Now they're 20 and 22. So we were talking about, raising kids and everything that went into that. And one of my sons asked if I had spent $1 million on them. And of course, my reaction was, are you kidding me? I haven't even earned $1 million. But then I started doing the math. Okay, carry the 7. And yeah, I have, over the course of my, 25 years working, I've earned $1 million. Have I spent that much on them? I don't know. We didn't do the math. I was kind of at that point just, flabbergasted because, again, we think that this ideal is the pinnacle. And in today's age of, high 5, low 6-figure salaries for many workers, depending on where you live in the country, earning $1 million is not the thing that it used to be. So how do we get out of our gap thinking and into the gain? Well, we talked about this idea of measuring backwards. You want to look at the distance you have already come, not how far you have to go. A couple weekends ago, I was out doing my long run as part of my training program. And the county running club was out as well. And, for a second, I started thinking, man, I wonder if they're looking at me and just, kind of judging my run and, because they're so much better than me, right? And it came into my mind and I immediately put it away. I said, no, you know what? They have no idea how far I've come. Not just today, right? Not just that day in terms of the distance that I had traveled, but they don't know where I started with my running career. I'll say that in air quotes, but my experience with running, I'm still fairly new. I haven't even been doing it for a year yet. And what was very easy for them, is still something that I'm working at. And that particular day was the longest run that I've ever done. I've done longer mileage, but I would walk some of it. But this was the longest run that I had done. And I was so excited. And I was almost willing to let them take that joy from me by being concerned about what they were thinking. And let's be honest, they were just running out there like I was. They probably didn't even notice me there. But that's what happens when we put that gap thinking in place. So measure backwards, measure how far you've come, not how far you have to go. Another way that you can be in the gain with your thinking is measure 3 wins every day. Now, this is plain and simple gratitude. I talk about that all the time. Gratitude helps us rewire our brain. It is so important for your mindset, for your positive outlook, and for you to be in the gain to measure 3 wins every day. Best way to do that is to just keep a little gratitude journal. Write that down every single day. If you're using a planner, you can write it on your daily entry. If you're using the Wholistic Productivity Planner, it's already built in. So there's a section there for your gratitude every single day. And that is another fantastic way to be in that gain thinking. And then the last tip is just transform every experience into a gain. Look for the positive in every situation. And that requires ownership of your experience. And I'm sure you've heard this said before, but it is absolutely true. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to that. And I'm not saying that that's easy and it's something that happens overnight, but when you catch yourself having those negative thoughts, those gap thoughts, change the narrative, correct your thinking, and take ownership of that and look for the positive. Look for the things that you are grateful for. Do not let others define your success. So let's recap what we talked about in this episode today. Mindset is so important because all of us, on some level, we know what we're supposed to do, but mindset helps us to think differently so that we can actually put those things into practice and do them to help us be more productive. So we talked about the book, The Gap and the Gain. And that is by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And they say that there are two ways to measure our progress. Being in the gap measures how far we still have to go to reach some ideal goal, whereas the gain measures backwards against what we've already accomplished and how far we've come. Gap thinking is how we've been programmed to think our entire life, that happiness is something that we pursue, but we may not ever achieve. And the reason for that is because the ideal that we are chasing is always changing. It's that treadmill that leads to a lot of negative gap thinking. Gain thinking is a lot harder to do. It's not natural for us. And so you have to practice it. You have to train your brain to work that way. But it stresses happiness because of what we've already accomplished. And we want to celebrate those moments. We measure what we've already accomplished by measuring backwards. Being in the gain is always empowering and comes with positive emotions and thoughts. To shift your thinking so that you are not in the gap and start thinking in the gain, you need to practice that measuring backwards. Celebrate the victories that you've already had, the goals that you've already achieved, even if it's not your ultimate goal. Celebrate those victories. Use gratitude as a way to measure backwards so you can see and appreciate just how far you've come and take ownership of your experience. Always look for the positive, even in those negative situations, and don't let anyone define your success. Well, that's it. That is the show for today. I hope something resonated with you. I would highly recommend that you read this book. There is so much more in here that I could talk about. Check it out. You can find a link to buy this on Amazon in the show notes. Again, that is holisticproductivity.com/17 for this episode. Show notes will be there. Make sure that you have subscribed, you've liked, you've followed, whatever you have to do on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube so that you can get the next episode when it airs. We drop new episodes every single Tuesday, so you want to watch for those. Maybe you've been listening for a while and you really like the show, you find it valuable. Would you do me the favor of rating the show? I heard this the other day. We strive for 5. If there's a little stars thing, you can fill out. We strive for 5. A little corny, but that's really what we're hoping that you would give, or just rate the show, whatever the system is. That lets other people find the show and allows them to also benefit from it. So I'm just grateful for everybody that's already done that. Thank you for doing that. And finally, be sure to follow on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, any of the social media platforms. I'm trying out Substack, by the way. If you're on Substack, you can find me there as well. That's a whole new thing for me. So be patient with it, but check that out. But thank you again for listening. I'm just so glad that you have spent this time here with me, and I hope that it's been beneficial for you. Like I said at the beginning, my goal with the podcast is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. before I sign off, close your eyes for a minute, unless you're driving, but close your eyes and imagine this. It's Friday. You're excited for the weekend. TGIF, right? You're wrapping up the work week, getting ready to leave the office. But as you're walking out the door, you start to reflect on the week and you say, what did I even accomplish this week? It's a frustrating feeling and a horrible way to start your weekend. You know that you've worked hard all week, but you have little or nothing to show for it. If you've ever had these feelings at the end of your week, I have a special offer for you to help you on your productivity journey. I talk about it all the time. Being intentional with your time is one of the biggest parts of productivity. And one of the best ways you can be intentional is to plan your week. Planning your week provides clarity on your priorities. It eliminates confusion about what needs to be done, and it sets you on a path for success. Now, I've developed the perfect tool to help you plan your week. I call it my Sunday strategy, and I want to give you my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide absolutely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter. The guide offers clear strategies for using the principles of holistic productivity to plan your week. You'll have a mindset shift away from the toxic aspects of productivity, and you'll get step-by-step directions for using the Sunday strategy worksheet. With my Sunday strategy, you only need 15 minutes each Sunday to plan out your entire week. It'll let you identify major projects and tasks that are coming up, assign those projects to specific days, and best of all, there are different sections for each area of your life: professional, personal, and purpose-driven, so you can reach all of your goals. My Sunday strategy worksheet also includes a weekly habit tracker to keep you focused on the habits that you want to develop. So if you want to avoid those Friday feelings of frustration and despair, you need my Sunday strategy worksheet. It's the perfect planning tool to help you build the winning strategy for your week. It's a resource you can come back to each day to keep you focused on reaching your goals, and it's an accountability tool to help you track your progress. Basically, it can help you have the most productive week ever. Like I said, it is completely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter, which also features more strategies and tips to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. To get my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide, go to mysundaystrategy.com and sign up. That's mysundaystrategy.com. There will also be a link in the show notes, but again, mysundaystrategy.com. Look forward to having you back here for the next episode of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast.